Hello, good people, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History, Spiritual Quest. And today we're going to be looking at Chapter 6 of the Impersonal Life, just as soon as we come back from this song, White Cross Shine. See you guys on the other side.
I'm a steam driving rider, rolling through the dawn. Big old pickup truck, Graceland's calling me home. Pulled over by the water, saw that white cross shine. Missed it cold in the sunrise, felt the spirit in my mind. I got the crossfire blues burning deep in my soul. Concrete and eternal, Lord, it makes me whole. From the pasture to the stage, from the ranch to summer pews, I'm singing hallelujah with these crossfire beats. Sat down in the dry grass, hands folded on my knees, peaceful as a prayer, like a good omen breeze. Family by the fire, friends gathering round, that cross stood tall, said this land was holy ground. I got the crossfire blues burning deep in my soul. Concrete and eternal, Lord, it makes me whole. From the pasture to the stage, from the ranch to the pews, I'm singing hallelujah with these crossfire blues. Gave a scar to a child, but the world tore it away. So I took the gold cross from my neck that day. Said, this is yours, baby, no one can take it from you. That's the power of the symbol. That's the gospel truth. Diamond lost in the dust, Priscilla by my side, but the cross kept shining, gave me peace inside. From Memphis to Mississippi, from cattle to the stars, every gift of grace I gave was carried in that cross. I got the crossfire blues burning deep in my soul. Concrete and eternal, Lord, it makes me whole. Turn a pasture to the stage, from the ranch to the pews, I'm singing hallelujah with these crossfire blues. Yeah, I'm singing hallelujah with these crossfire blues.
Thank you all for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echoes. And today we're going to hear some echoes of Patsy Presley who was Elvis's double first cousin. Patsy was the daughter of Vester Presley, who was Vernon Presley's brother. Vernon Presley was Elvis's father. And Patsy's mother was Cletus Presley, who was formerly Cletus Smith, who was Gladys Smith's younger sister, and Gladys, of course, was Elvis's mother. So once upon a time, Gladys used to date Vester, and Vernon used to date Cletus. But there was a magical switcheroo that we really don't know how it occurred. But those two couples stayed together for their whole lives. And one of them, their child, was Elvis Presley. And Patsy, she worked for Elvis in the office. She worked with Elvis's father, Vernon. And they took care of Elvis's financial affairs. They did all the logistics that were required to take care of Graceland and the mansion. And they wrote all the checks for the payroll in most cases. They kept all the records, and they made sure that all the fans, as many as they could, got a reply when they sent something to Elvis. And one of the pieces that Patsy came to possess that used to be Elvis's was this bluish cross. And this is one of those pieces that's not really expensive. It's not, it's really a piece of costume jewelry. And that this blue cross was part of the collection, which Patsy Presley kept, and she began selling in the early 1980s. There was a point where Vernon and Patsy went through Elvis's bedroom, and probably other parts of Graceland, and they secured a lot of items that they thought might be liable to walk away on their own. And some of those items included a jewelry box that contained nothing but costume jewelry that had deep emotional value to Elvis. I don't know if this was in that jewelry box. I know she sold the box and many of the contents to a particular collector. But it might have been that this piece came from that box when it was sold. Or she might have sold it individually. I really don't know. It says that when this was sold at auction this year, that the necklace has never been offered publicly until now. That might still indicate that Patsy sold it as part of that collection in that jewelry box, because that was a private sale to an individual. It's not like Patsy went out and put it on eBay. There wasn't any eBay at the time. One of the collectors had approached her, and they worked out a deal, and she sold the stuff to him. And it's not known if this piece was gifted to Elvis or if he ever wore it or what the exact connection is. Just that Patsy got it from Elvis's room. And so this is one of those pieces that it doesn't have a giant story to go with it. It's just known that Elvis had it, and someone this year, they purchased this. It wasn't up at auction. It was just offered for sale publicly, and they purchased it for $3,500. So they felt like, even without a story, because it was connected to Elvis, that this cross is very important. And again, we see a piece of Elvis that has gone forward. Here we are almost 50 years after he's passed away. And his message that is connected to these crosses is still moving forward and reaching new fans. Several fans saw this cross this year, And then one of them put their money down and they purchased it because it has meaning for them. And this is a picture of Elvis with his cousin Patsy. Who, because of Patsy, were able to see this cross today. And with that, let's return to the text that we're trying to move through, which in this case is Jonathan Benner, Joseph Benner's, always mixing that name up. Joseph Benner's The Impersonal Life, Chapter 6, Thinking and Creating. Let's go to the text itself. And we'll begin reading here in the text. The title is Thinking and Creating. I have said that man does not think, that it is I within him who do his thinking. So this chapter starts off by letting us know the I am is speaking to us again. And the I am is the God that lives in your heart, the divine voice with which you can commune and keep communication open with the divine so that you can ensure that you are aligned with the divine, both your mortal self and your spiritual self, your soul. And here the I am is telling us that the thinking that we think we do is really, it's him. It's the divine part of us that does the thinking. And then it says, I have also said man thinks he thinks. And so this is an indication that man has an ability to fool himself about his own capabilities. I think that might have spoken to Elvis because he did, I believe, worry about an inflated ego. And I think there were several things that he did in his life, certain practices like keeping the guys around him that he felt helped him keep from gaining an inflated ego, that kept him grounded. And so that he would not fool himself into things like thinking that he thinks. Although this wasn't probably something he thought about at the moment till he read this. And as this is an apparent contradiction, I needs must show you that man ordinarily does not think any more than he does anything else he supposes he does. So this is a reference to earlier chapters that we have within us shards of, we are a shard of the divine, and each piece that makes us up has a spark of the divine. Each of our cells, each of our molecules, and it's the same with the entire world. We're all part of a giant unity that's made up of these sparks of the divine. We are slightly more than that. We are a shard of the divine. So we contain the spark as well as free will, which some pieces, like our cells, don't have. We direct what our cells do. Or, as the I am is telling us here, the I am directs what our cells do. And if we are in line with the I am, then we may be able to direct what the cells do. And this is taking us deeper into those thoughts. The book says, for I, within him, do all that he does. But I necessarily do it through his organism, through his personality, his body, mind, and soul. And I will point out how this can be. And this passage is saying, I believe this is another reflection of what the book has already told us, that the Word comes in many forms, that the Holy Spirit is imbued not only in the Bible, but in every piece of your organism, each of the cells, each of the subparticles of the cells, and in your entire being. And that is how the I am is working through your personality, your body, your mind, and your soul. They're all portions of the divine. They all have the divine spark. And he's able to work through you because of this unity. And the book has already told us that if we understand this unity correctly and are in line, we too will be able to have this type of conscious control. And it says, first, try to realize that I made you in my image and likeness, and that I have my being within you. Even if you do not know this now, and believe that I, God, am somewhere without, and that we are separated, try for the time to imagine I am within you. This passage is again internalizing the unity in the I am. We're all part of the same circle, the same whole. But you may think that you're separate from that whole, which is part of the misalignment. When you're misaligned, you've moved yourself away from the divine. And when you are in alignment, you've brought yourself closer to the divine. And this is stating that the book knows that you might think that maybe you're not worthy to have God inside yourself, or maybe you don't believe in God, or maybe you think God lives in heaven and you live here. Whatever the idea is that has separated you from God, for the purposes of the text, it wants you to imagine that God truly is within. And next, realize that which you do when you think is... Let me start this over. Next, realize that which you do when you think is not real thinking, because it is not conscious thinking. For you are unconscious of me, the inspirer and director of every idea and thought that enters your mind. This is interesting. It's trying to tell us that you do still have real thoughts, and they are inspiration. They are divine inspiration. But because you are misaligned, you're not conscious that it's from the divine. You think you thought these things up. You think you're the reason that these creative ideas have arrived in your brain. You think you're the reason that inspires you. Because you are unconscious of the I am. You've pushed it aside and you've locked it away, and it's still helping you, but you're not recognizing that as its help. It's part of a self-delusion. And in the next piece, it says, next, realize because I am within you, and you are my image and likeness, and therefore possess all of my faculties. You have my power of thinking. But not being conscious that thinking is creating, that it is one of my divine powers you are using, you have indeed all your life been thinking, but it has all been misthinking, or what you would call error thinking. This passage again brings forth the idea that we are made in the image and likeness of the I am, which I'm sure was very comforting to Elvis, because it said that within him, that spark of the divine, the inspiration, the creativity that came through in his molding of the songs and the lyrics and the way he shaped them into sound and the way that he performed visually on stage, that they were all expressions of the I am, and that he couldn't have been as successful as he was. I believe he would have seen it, that he could not have been as successful as he was if he had not been aligned in those moments with the I am. And this passage also tells us that we've been thinking and using this power of the divine all our lives, but it's not really been focused as it should be, because it should be focused on the will of the divine, and we've been using it for our own purposes. And that's okay, because we've been training how to think. And it's all error thinking at this point, but we've got all the systems in place. We know how to use it. And now the I am is going to show us, once that you align, that you will have massive amounts of power because of your ability to think aligned with the I am. The book says, in this error thinking, this not knowing it is my power you have been thus misusing, has been separating you in consciousness farther and farther from me, but all the time fulfilling my purpose, which later on will be made manifest to you. So the I am is telling us that it knows that we've been misusing this power, and that it's given us the power to misuse. Because we can't use it, right? To start with, we're not in line. We haven't got to that point. So it's trained us in the ability to think, even though we're misusing. And part of that misuse takes us further away from the I am, somewhat like a child learning how to ride a bicycle with training wheels. When they take off, they take themselves further away from the person who's teaching them. But hopefully, because they're now able to ride this bicycle on their own, they'll be able to turn around and come on back. And that's when you'll realize that the whole time you've been walking the path, even though you didn't even know it. And Jen says that she can see how Elvis would think that when we're not in alignment with a higher power, our thoughts are all over the place, and you can't focus on what you want or manifest. That's a good point too, that you can become scattered and your focus can go many places. And the book goes on and it says, the proof of this, you think you are separated from me, that you are living in a material world, that your body of flesh engenders and harbors pleasure and pain, and that an evil influence called the devil is manifesting in the world, opposing my will. So now the book is directly reflecting on passages that we've probably heard in the Bible about the devil. And we've actually seen that word used in the King James in the book of John, chapter 6, that we just read. So the word devil is repeated in both of these chapters. That's kind of interesting. And this passage seems to indicate the devil is a belief that we have, and it's not real. And that we think we are separated from God, but he's already told us, I'm a spark in everything. Every piece of your being has my spark, and you are my shard. And therefore, you can't be separated from me in the sense that you believe you're separated. You're separated in the sense that you're misaligned. But you're not separated in the sense that you are different from God. You're made in his image, you're a piece of him. You will never be able to escape that. Although you can distance yourself through your own free will. And I think this piece here would have really picked up on Elvis's attention because it's talking about the material world. And he lives in a very material world, surrounded by people who are extremely concerned with the material world. And Gunn says that it's not a nice thought that one may have been misthinking all one's life. That's a good point, Gunn, that there's a discomfort when you read these words within the text, that it's discomforting because it means maybe we've been wrong our entire lives. And obviously that's not something we'd like to face. I think Elvis may have seen it opposite, that he was searching for something, and even hearing that he'd been wrong all of his life might have been comforting in the fact that he knew there was something else out there. And that's why he was searching. And now the book is saying, you're right, you've been thinking about this wrong the whole time. And that kind of reinforces Elvis's decision to begin the search. But if you're not searching, like those of us that are probably reading the book right now, because we're searching for what Elvis thought, not necessarily for what the book is teaching us or trying to, then it can become very discomforting. But the books address that as well by saying, you may think that you're separated from me, but just for these moments, pretend that we're one, that we're one piece. And then the book says, yes, you think all of these things are so. And they are to you. For all things are to man's mortal consciousness what he thinks or believes they are. So now the book has addressed Gunn's statement directly, that although there is discomfort in these thoughts, that they are true while you think them, because your power of the divine makes them true. You shape your world around you. But it's also trying to point out that the reality that you shaped is also an illusion that you've created. So it's another dichotomy within the text. And there's always this tension, just like in the Bible, between what appear to be contradictory views, with the truth being somewhere in the middle, which I think of as like a guitar string, and you put your finger on a different fret. It's always the same string, but there's one note that rings true with the song of the moment, and there are other notes that harmonize with it. Every note is a real note along the string, but only these few notes will fit in at this moment. And that's create that sound, the harmony, the chord itself is created by the tension of the string. And so the truth of the note is created by the tension of two opposing forces, two things that seem to be on opposite sides. And in the next passage, and I have likewise caused them to appear to man to be what he thinks they are. This also to suit my purpose and to fulfill the law of creating. And I think the text is telling us here that this is a necessary step in your evolution towards your understanding of your existence as the divine shard. That there is a path that the divine has set into place. And that's why he allows us to believe these things while we believe them. Somewhat like a child believing in Santa Claus. It is discomforting when you learn that Santa Claus isn't real. But you were allowed to believe it for a period because it was best for you to believe it for that period. And then the book says, let us see if this is not true. So it offers to show us a test. And if you believe a thing is so, is not that thing really so to you? Is it not true that a thing seems real to you, like some sin or evil so-called, some sorrow, trouble, or worry, only because you're thinking or believing it so makes it such, this is speaking again to mountains out of molehills, like we talked about yesterday. That some people increase their problems by giving their problems their own power. And the book says others might see that thing entirely different and might think your view is foolish. Might they not? And this is a reflection on perspective. I think this would have spoken to Elvis because his perspective as Elvis was completely different than everyone else's perspective around him. Like his cousin, Billy Smith. He had the Billy Smith perspective. He saw Elvis as a family member and a boss at different times. But then you got a guy like Lamar Fike, and he sees Elvis as a friend and a boss, depending on exactly when it is. But they don't have the same experiences with Elvis, even when they're together, all three. So they each have a different perspective. And what might be a massive problem to one, like I can't make my car payment this month, to Elvis is nothing from his perspective. He has the ability to fix that for them. But this is actually speaking about more important items, you know, what you see as sins and what you see as alignment with the divine. But it's just pointing out that you're limited by your perspective, and that if you can allow yourself to see from the perspective of another, you might see things totally different. And I think Elvis did this all the time because he was very easily able to see suffering from the perspective of the people who suffered, especially when it came to financial suffering. People who suffered because they didn't have enough money for this or that. People who were hungry. He identified with that. And he could see things from their perspective, which had once been his perspective. And Gunn says that yes, some would see it different, something quite normal. Right, it's all about your perspective. And that your perspective can shape your reality. Then it says, if this is true, then your body, your personality, your character, your environment, your world are what they appear to be to you, because you have thought them into their present status. This is another restatement that you have created your reality. And I wonder if Elvis ever thought about this passage during 1976 when he had his issues with Red West and Sonny West and Dave Hebler. Did he spend time wondering whether, is this an issue I have created because I'm looking at this incorrectly? Or have they misaligned with me? And because they'd all been friends for so long, right? And so this perspective issue might have really come into play for him at that point. And in the next passage, therefore you can change them by the same process. If they do not please you, you can make them whatever you will by thinking them so, can you not? And that makes me wonder how often Elvis did spend time during his meditations thinking about the way he wanted things to be. And whether he was able to manifest any of that. What we see from the outside is we see a lot of issues. Because that's what the news focused on. That's what sold the books. What we see, I think, in a lot of cases about Elvis are one-offs. He acted in this one manner one time, but it becomes like a myth that he acted like that all the time. And the reason it became a story was it was an exception to a rule. But it's the exception that became famous and not the rule. Not the way that Elvis lived his life every day. I think those of us who are the true fans, we see that because we see the massive amount of generosity and love that stretched through every story. So I don't know that we ever really get a good perspective on what Elvis truly wanted and what he was thinking and trying to manifest, and if those things came true. And some of that's also because the stories are teased apart from the other events of the time periods. So it becomes hard to figure out, like with the Aloha from Hawaii, who's really responsible for this? Is this a Colonel thing? Is this a Elvis manifested this thing? Did Elvis have a very active role in getting it done? And as well as like the 68 comeback special. And so those are interesting pieces that one day we'll walk through together. And the book goes on and says, but how can one do real thinking, conscious thinking, so as to bring about this change, you ask? Now that probably caught Elvis's attention too. How can I manifest what I want to happen? And Gunn says that the thinking outside of this book does not have to be wrong thinking, because some think differently, don't they? And that this is nothing new to her. That's an interesting point. That maybe it's not wrong thinking because this book's already pointed out that there are different perspectives. And so that's another tension and dichotomy within the book. And then it says, first, know that I, your real self, purposely brought to your attention these things which now are displeasing. That's interesting. It says that I have brought to your attention these things which are displeasing. And I think Gunn is also saying that she finds a lot of these words displeasing. So the book knew when we read it that we would not like these words. And it says, first I know that I, your real self, purposely brought to your attention these things which now are displeasing, and which cause you to think them as being what they now seem to be to you, and I alone, am thus preparing your human mind, so that when you turn within to me in abiding faith and trust, I can enable you to see and bring into outer manifestation the reality of these things, which now seem so unsatisfactory. And so it's as if the book knew at this very moment within the text, we would be pushing back against it and saying that, no, this is not correct. You've gone too far in this chapter, and you've said that all my thinking has been incorrect. And it says, yes, this is an unsatisfactory thought. And that makes me wonder if Joseph Binnert had this conversation with people before he wrote the book. I feel like he must have. And I wonder if Elvis found this unsatisfactory at this point as well. Or if he read it and thought, no, I understand exactly what you're saying, keep going. I can see how he might have gone either way. And then it says, for I bring to you everything that by their outer seeming can attract or lure your human mind onward in its earthly search, in order to teach you of the illusionariness. It's the word illusion. and I can't pronounce it in this format, of all outer appearance of material things to the human mind, and of the fallibility of all human understanding, so that you will turn finally within to me and my wisdom as the one and only interpreter and guide. I think the book is telling us here, we're going to fight about this for a little while. We're going to do some wrestling about it. It's okay to wrestle. You can come back and read the passage as often as you want, or just move on through the book. Either way, but this message is going to continue to be repeated, and eventually you're going to see it, and you're going to turn to me, the I am within. And then I'm going to be able to pull away the veils which hide the true reality from you. Elvis might have been impatient and eager at this point, because he was looking to have that veil pulled away. Others of us, we might be still far more resistant at this point, and the book feels that most people are going to be resistant. And then it says, and when you have turned thus within to me, I will open your eyes and cause you to see that the only way you can ever bring about this change in thinking is by first changing your attitude toward all these things you now think are not what they ought to be. The book now addresses a mode of thought that we have, our attitude. And it again tells us what it's been telling us the whole time. There's something getting in the way of your communion with the I am. And that something is you. The thing that always gets in the way of the communion with the I am is you. You are resistant. Be still and know I am God. And the be still of that quote, which also is in Psalms 46:10, it could also be translated as stop fighting or stop struggling. That you are actively struggling against the I am, and therefore you cannot know that I am God. You distance yourself from him, and that once you become still, that's part of the changing of your attitude. And once you know I am God, then God will be able to reveal reality to you. And the book says that is, if they are unsatisfactory or obnoxious to you and affect you so as to cause you discomfort of body or disturbance of mind, why, stop thinking that they can so affect or disturb you. This is another interesting passage. It says, I know as you read the book, you've pushed back and you don't like what's being said, and it's disturbed you. Well, it shouldn't have the power to disturb you. These are just words. And that you've given them the power to disturb you, that comes from your power of the I am. This is the power of shaping the reality around you. You've given the words in the text power to make you uncomfortable. That the words themselves don't contain the power. And so this is an interesting reflection on how we as people interact with a text. Because the text is not truly talking to us, it's just words on a page. It's not truly transmitting a message. We are bringing that message out of the words in our own brains. That all of the communication and interaction between a text and ourselves happens within ourselves. Now, if we were talking to another person, it would be different. But in this sense, we're simply ingesting the information and then processing it ourselves. And Jen says that human beings struggle with that one. Exactly. And the book's saying that it knows that these struggles exist and that they're okay. That you're supposed to be struggling. That it knows that you're struggling. And that it's giving you the key that you can cease the struggle. But that you will struggle again. Because that's what falling out of alignment is. And we're going to do it over and over, maybe hundreds of times a day. And the book goes on and says, for who is the master? Your body, your mind, or you, the I am within? The book asks, who's running the show? Is it your divine spark? The shard of you, which is the I am? Or is it that portion of you that wants all those material things, like food and shelter and wealth and power? And Jen says that they struggle with being still and knowing that I am. We spoke about having faith and believing all will be well, and it's hard to do sometimes. Exactly, it's very hard. And I think part of that faith, I think what many people misunderstand about the faith is, and I think what both books are telling us, from what we've read, is that your faith, you will not be able to maintain your faith at 100% at all times. It's on a spectrum. And if we look at Mother Teresa, it turns out that she wrote for years about her struggle with faith. That from the outward appearance, we saw nothing but her faith. But inwardly, she wrote of her struggles, that she couldn't maintain this faith all the time. But the difference is that the important piece is that she never turned away from the I am or from God. She voiced her struggles and her doubts directly to God. And I would see this as a child who has come to their father, and they scream and yell at their father. They call him nasty names. They tell him that they hate him. They tell him they're never going to talk to them again. They say whatever horrible things are said, because this occurs within a family setting between fathers and children. Children are not capable of always controlling their emotions or of acting in an adult manner. And so they will lash out, and then the father embraces them. And he holds them till it's over. That is not turning away from the I am. But Judas, he turned away, and he would never come back and scream his problems with God to God. God's okay with you screaming at him. You have to maintain the communication and the dialogue. And he understands that you're a child, even though we don't like to think of ourselves as children. So I think that's part of what the faith is. It's not that you always are comfortable in your belief of God. It's that you refuse to turn away from God, even when you feel the greatest doubt. And I think you could go to the book of Job, and you can see a lot of that played out. And Gunn says one would like to think that one's thinking is one's own. Yes, we are definitely, and it's so interesting that you say it, Gunn, because I know that you're from Sweden. And here in America, individuality is so important to people. And I'm assuming it's probably that way in Sweden as well. And therefore, they don't, or we don't like to think that we're not responsible for our own thoughts. And it's part of this, we do create our own reality, and we're very invested in that. So it's telling us both things. And we're getting this dichotomy of thought and this tension again. And Carolyn loves Elvis forever. Thank you so much for coming, Carolyn. I appreciate seeing you. She says that's the way it should be. You need to have a personal relationship with the Lord. I get mad and ask why all the time. And Gunn says that it doesn't feel good letting someone else do my thinking and controlling my thoughts, even if it is I am. Well, Gunn, I think that is the message of the book. That the I am is you. You are the I am. The feeling that the I am would think thoughts that are not yours, that's part of the misalignment and the separation from the I am. And that if you were aligned, and of course, God, I'm not ever saying that you're not aligned, or that anyone here is not aligned, or that anyone should be aligned, or that anything in this text is even true. We're reading through this text to find what Elvis would have found in it. But I do appreciate that it gives us the opportunity to each do our own soul searching. But the book seems to address what Gunn has said as a misalignment. And Jen says that Carolyn having faith all the time is tough. I let it go to the higher power, even though I want to be upset. And these are all beautiful statements about your personal relationships and communication and your faith with the I am and the divine. And that each person has this struggle to go through individually. And that's what Elvis was going through. And I think Elvis was thinking about everyone else in his life that was going through it. And he thought about how tough it was for himself. And then he thought about how much he didn't want to leave all these other people behind and feel like he was saved and all of them weren't. And Carolyn says that, Jen, I totally agree. There are times in my life when I'm far from God, and then he brings me back again. And I think that's part of what this text is saying, that you're going to swing closer and further from the divine, and that the book is giving you the techniques that when you've swung away to bring yourself back. And the book says, then why not show you are the master by thinking the true things that the I am of you within wishes you to think? So again, I think this speaks directly to what Gunn said about not wanting to believe that her thoughts are thought by the I am. It says you are the master, and you think you are the master by thinking the true things the I am of you within wishes you to think. That when you feel the alignment, the thoughts will be yours. And then the book says, it is only by your thinking these other things, by allowing these inharmonious thoughts to enter your mind, and by so doing, giving them the power so to affect or disturb you, that they have any such influence over you. When you stop thinking into them this power and turn within me to allow me to direct your thinking, they will at once disappear from your consciousness and dissolve into the nothingness from which you created them by your thinking. So again, the book is speaking to doubts, and it's saying that the doubts that you have, you're supposed to have them, but that once we hit the alignment, these doubts will be seen to not be there, much in the same way as the book of John showed us the miracle of the fishermen in the boat who believed they were in a storm and that Jesus walked across water to reach their boat. And once he was in the boat, and their fears were calmed, they realized they were on the shore. And it's not clear whether they sailed up to the shore or they were there all the time and there had never been a storm. And this is saying the same thing, that once you're aligned with the I Am, the doubts, which are the storm that threaten to sink the ship, which is you, they'll disappear. They will have never been there. And Gunn says that she admires Elvis very much for reading and following this book, and that she hopes it helped him a lot. And that he was not trusting himself on the way, that he trusted in himself on the way. And Jen says, I think Elvis wanted to bring his friends and family into his new thoughts, and Larry was the only one who didn't think this was too new age. I totally agree with that. Although I think this book gave Elvis a universal language. Not that he could talk to his family with, because they were steeped in the Assembly of God Christianity, but that he could speak to other people about. Not necessarily the Memphis Mafia. He'd already warned them out with this. They were already disinterested. But other people that he met. And this is where we're going to leave it for today. And when we come back, we'll try to finish out Chapter 6 of The Impersonal Life. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming today. I've really enjoyed having you here and your comments as we wrestle with this text ourselves and we try to walk through it. And I'm going to leave you guys with a song. And this is the theme song to the show, this particular series about Elvis walking through these texts. It's called Word on Fire. And I hope to see you guys all at 3 p.m. Eastern today as I finish off the incident that Richard Davis was a part of. And I correct a major error that's been floating through Elvis history for more than 30 years based on the works of a major author in the fields, Peter Guralnick. So you're not going to want to miss it. And until I see you all again, y'all keep on taking care of business. Make sure you hit the like, that you're subscribed, and that you tell everybody you know that loves Elvis to join us here at Hillbilly Cat History. This is Word on Fire.